Welcome to an overview of the ancient Inca investigation. In this investigation, you're trying to figure out how to respond to the question, how did the Inca maintain control over such a large empire? Today, as you begin learning about the Inca, instead of memorizing names and dates from a textbook, which is really hard and not particularly interesting, you will instead read and hear several different perspectives. You'll discuss with your classmates, and then make your own decision about what it all means. Read, inquire, write lessons are called investigations. Throughout each investigation, you're looking for evidence to figure out how to respond to a central question. You'll notice that our investigations never say answer a central question. Instead, you'll hear us ask you to respond to a central question. That's because we believe there is not one right answer. There could be multiple answers. So we want you to respond to the question with evidence. Read, inquire, write investigations support you in building a case for your argument using evidence and reasoning. Over time, this kind of work will strengthen your reading, writing, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills. In this investigation, you're trying to respond to the central question, how did the Inca maintain control over such a large empire? You might be asking, who were the Inca and where did they live? The Inca lived over 400 years ago and ruled a large empire in what is today South America. Their empire was one of the largest in the world. Today, there is an exhibit about the Inca at the Field Museum in Chicago, Illinois. The museum curators want to include information about how the Inca were able to control such a large empire for over 300 years. Two different museum curators have written arguments that answer the question, how did the Inca maintain control over such a large empire? Your task is to read the two arguments and critique the one the museum should not use in their exhibit. You will write an email to the curators at the Field Museum with a claim that critiques the one they should not use and argue why with evidence from the sources and reasoning about the evidence. Remember, a critique is a type of argument that responds to someone else's argument by pointing out what may be wrong with it and why. Our investigation will guide you step by step in developing your critique of the museum's arguments about the Inca. Let's review those steps now. First, you'll begin by building background about the Inca. For example, you will examine two timelines and make observations about those timelines. Next, your teacher will provide you with different sources to read about the Inca. You'll use these sources to determine which curator's argument you believe is the strongest. To help you read these sources, your teacher will provide you with this bookmark. The bookmark tool will help you understand, analyze, and evaluate sources about the Inca. The bookmark prompts you to make annotations or detailed notes about the sources. You'll do this as you read and after you read. For example, in this source, you can see that a student has circled and underlined important information related to the author, Pedro de Cieza de León, and the time period when it was written. The student also made notes about what those circles and underlined phrases mean. You will do the same on your sources, and the bookmark tool will guide you. Making these annotations is really important because they will help you remember key ideas in the sources. This way, you don't have to try to remember everything or have to reread everything later. Instead, these annotations will make it easier to critique the museum's argument about the sources to be used in the exhibit. In step 3, you will weigh the evidence presented in the 4 sources on the Inca Empire. You will begin by sorting the sources based on your understanding. Then you will construct and discuss the arguments based on what you have learned from these 4 sources. Then in step 4, you will read and analyze a mentor text similar to the type of critique you will write about the Inca Empire. A mentor text is a sample of writing that shows you one way to organize and write a critique-style argument. It includes important parts such as claim, evidence, and reasoning. It's a good example of the way you can structure your own response about the Inca. Just remember that the mentor text is not exactly what you'll write, and it is not a source. The mentor text is one example of what your essay might look like. Next, you'll use the planning graphic organizer. The graphic organizer is like a roadmap for your essay. It helps you organize your ideas about which sources are most reliable for learning about the Inca, and it will prompt you to give evidence and reasoning to support your argument. You will use all of the work you've done so far to help you develop this roadmap. You'll look at your annotated sources, you'll determine which argument you think is strongest, and then make decisions to plan the essay you'll write. Then in step 6, you're ready to write your essay and respond to the central question, how did the Inca maintain control over such a large empire? Be sure to use the sources you have read to write your response to the museum. We know it's sometimes difficult to start writing. That's why we also include a useful language tool. You can look at this tool to choose from examples of how to start your claim, evidence, and reasoning. Finally, after you have spent some time writing, pause to use the reflection tool. The reflection tool will help you review what you have written so far and set goals for your next steps. The reflection tool reminds you about what to include in your argument. Let's review quickly the 7 steps you'll take throughout this investigation. First, make connections and build background. Second, read and analyze sources using the bookmark tool. Third, weigh the evidence. Fourth, analyze the mentor text. Fifth, complete the planning graphic organizer, deciding on the argument you will make. Sixth, use the useful language tool as you draft your essay. And 7th, review and improve your essay using the reflection tool. As you work through the investigation, make sure to talk with your classmates and others who can support you as you learn about and respond to the central question, how did the Inca maintain control over such a large empire? Good luck!